Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French on what is going to be a very busy Monday evening for us. Tomorrow night, at this time, we'll be prepping for the biggest event of the election campaign thus far. I'm talking about the first debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Plus, we will dig into the resume of the newest nominee for the Supreme Court and also speak with an expert about the changes she could bring. But all of that, it is taking a back seat tonight to the tax returns of one Donald J. Trump. The biggest takeaways, Trump paid $750 million, not 750,000, $750 a year as president in personal income taxes. Again, $750. Question is, how much did you pay? He went through years where he paid zero, the result of Trump being a horrible business person. No wonder he spent so much time and energy trying to hide his returns from the public. They're as embarrassing as they are insulting. The New York Times reporting that President Trump paid just $750 in federal income taxes the year he won the White House, and the same amount his first year in office. On top of that, the paper says that of the 18 years they examined, he paid no federal income tax in 11 of them. The president denying it and repeating the claim that he can't release his taxes because he's still under audit, even though his own IRS commissioner said an audit would not prevent him from doing just that.
The IRS does not treat me well. They treat me very, very badly, but they're under audit. And when they're not, I would be proud to show you.
The investigation paints a picture of a businessman whose empire is seriously struggling despite repeated claims like this.
I'm really rich.
Now the Times says documents showing the president reported more than $47 million in losses in 2018 alone. And he faces a personal debt totaling $420 million, money that could come due while he's in office if he's elected to a second term. According to the Times, most of the president's core businesses, including his golf courses and hotel just blocks from the White House, report losing millions, if not tens of millions, year after year. The paper also accuses the president and his companies of claiming questionable deductions on some of those businesses, including at Mar-a-Lago, when the president was in office, more than $109,000 for linens and silverware and nearly $200,000 for landscaping. He also wrote off more than $70,000 in haircuts when he was on The Apprentice, even though the IRS requires business deductions to be, quote, ordinary and necessary. The president, who vowed to pursue no new foreign deals as president, earned more than $73 million from his overseas business dealings during his first 2 years in the White House, including from countries with authoritarian leaders like the Philippines and Turkey, according to the Times. The paper also says that as the president was paying that mere $750 in taxes here at home the year he took office, he or his companies paid more than $300,000 to countries overseas. And we're learning that the reason for that audit, the Times saying it stems from questions about the legitimacy from a nearly $73 million tax refund that the president received. But even as the question of how much he's paid in taxes has dogged President Trump for years.
What is your tax rate?
It's none of your business. You'll see it when I release. But I fight very hard to pay as little tax as possible.
He's always maintained that paying fewer taxes makes him smart. Trump's tax returns have, of course, been mysteries for years, but maybe we should have known better. After all, there's always a tweet. You go back to 2012. Trump complaining then that President Obama paid only a 20.5% tax rate. The same year that Trump, well, he paid nothing, just like he did in 10 of the 15 years between 2000 and 2015. Or maybe we should have believed former Trump attorney Michael Cohen when he said this under oath to Congress.
It was my experience that Mr. Trump inflated his total assets when it served his purposes, such as trying to be listed amongst the wealthiest people in Forbes, and deflated his assets to reduce his real estate taxes.
That wasn't the only hint that Cohen dropped. For Congress and in his book, Cohen, he tells of a conversation where Trump showed him a $10 million IRS refund check in 2010. He quotes Trump as saying, "Can you believe how effing stupid the IRS is? Who would give me a refund of $10 effing million? They're so stupid. And the reveal of Trump's taxes could be problematic for Deutsche Bank, the only major bank that would still do business with Trump after his properties in Atlantic City collapsed and all the other bankruptcies. As one report put it, Donald Trump's history with Deutsche Bank has always merited special scrutiny, but never more than now. The head honchos at the bank would have known just how desperate Trump's financial position was, but they lent to him anyway. Why? It certainly looks even more ominous that Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy's son was managing the real estate division at Deutsche that lent to Trump, and that Justice Kennedy unexpectedly retired to ensure Trump could seat his replacement. It also looks triply suspicious that Deutsche Bank has been fined and sanctioned over multiple money laundering scandals, including $20 billion from Russian kleptocrats. It could all be a coincidence, but as they say, quote, it probably isn't. And for more, we turn to a man who has written the book literally on Donald Trump, and written more than one at that. David Cay Johnston, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and the founder of the news site DC Report. And when I saw the Times story, I'll say, David, you were the first guy I thought of. You've been beating this drum for a long time. There's a lot to take away, but let's put it in as consumable bites for our audience who doesn't get into the granular level. First off, the idea that this was just some evil genius on the part of the president to avoid taxes, let's please put that to rest. He is a historically bad businessman, and that has been a constant ever since Daddy bailed him out.
Donald Trump is not a businessman. He is a cash extractor. Every enterprise he's had, with one exception, Trump University, he did not put up a penny. In Atlantic City, for example, he had a negative investment of north of $11 million. But once he gets his hands on an enterprise, he takes cash out of it as fast as he can. In fact, New Jersey casino authorities had to put a limit on how much cash he was withdrawing because they thought it would make the casinos he ran unstable. He has, throughout his career, hidden records. He forged a document. In one case, a judge found that he submitted a forged tax return, which in itself could have been grounds for criminal prosecution. But Donald's never been a successful businessman. He instead gets a business, bleeds it dry, leaves the carcass with its unpaid bills, and moves on. And that's the point of his book, The Art of the Deal. There's always another mark for the con artist.
Here's the difference, David. He's got a $420 million overhang, and I can argue it's actually north of $500 million when you look at this, and he personally guaranteed it. And he's got to start making payments next year. Maybe he can have a fire sale here, but he's got a real problem on his hands.
Yes, in the next 4 years, Donald has over $300 million of personally guaranteed debt coming due. And interestingly, Tim O'Brien, another Trump biographer, and Forbes magazine today both say, as I also believe, that Trump's actual debt is north of $1 billion because the presidential disclosure form has a lot of loopholes in it. Now, here are the two issues that arise from that. Is any bank regulated by the Trump administration going to foreclose on the president of the United States? Let's be serious. Secondly, the loans from Deutsche Bank, we have extremely good reason to believe were not really loans from Deutsche Bank, that on the other side of these loans were deposits made by Russian criminals to guarantee the payment. And if that's the case, Donald Trump is really beholden to the oligarchs around Vladimir Putin, a man about whom he has never said a negative word. And indeed, he has said he does not trust American intelligence authorities, but he trusts Vladimir Putin.
Okay, so here, I think, should be a bright red light here. I believe there's two reasons why the president is so desperate to stay in office. One, there's both civil and criminal investigations potentially that came out of the Mueller probe here that are at either the Southern District, Eastern District, or who else knows where else, that are waiting for him as a private citizen without the benefit of a pardon pad. And two, you got all this money hanging out there. And if he's a private citizen, it's all going to come out how much he owes and who's been putting up the money to protect him. He's got a lot of reasons to want to have November 3rd go his way.
Yeah, Richard, I think you've hit that right on the head. I said 5 years ago after Donald announced that he has never done a day of public service. He has no idea what's in our Constitution, because it's something he and I have talked about in the past, and that he's a wannabe dictator. And now he tries to make a joke out of this, but he keeps saying, well, when I'm reelected in 2028, 2032, we've just had some reporting that he was thinking about openly within his circle having Ivanka be his running mate this time around instead of Mike Pence. Donald Trump is not someone with any respect for democracy. He says that our Constitution, I have an Article 3 that says I can do anything I want. It doesn't come close to saying that.
I know he doesn't care about this, David, but the offensive nature of this, maybe it'll play out tomorrow on the debate stage, but the idea that $750, meanwhile, some guy busting his hump, making 30 grand a year is going into his pocket or her pocket for more, not to do a civics lesson, but our roads get built with that money. Our military gets paid for this country. Our nation, talk about being a patriot, that's the least we owe our country here. And the idea that he considers himself smart because he stiffs and hustles the country at the same time, trying to get us for 75 grand for that thing on his head, or paying his daughter something else, if that doesn't offend anyone's sensibilities, I don't know what will.
Well, Richard, I think there's a real moral crisis in that a lot of people, when you say, look, Donald Trump is a crook, I can show him being deeply involved with an international cocaine trafficker he did extraordinary favors for, their response is, so what? And I think we need to have a serious discussion about right and wrong and moral standards in this country. But on the tax issue, the $750 he paid in 2016 and again in 2017, that was just a placeholder in the tax return. That's not a real number. That's why it's a round number. And so in the majority of years in this century, Donald Trump has paid no federal income tax, and he doesn't have enough real estate to offset his other income. There's other things going on here, and I'm sure we're going to find, just as with his 2 civil tax fraud trials he lost, that he just made up tax deductions that have no basis in reality to benefit himself. And if I can add one other little item, at DC Report, we have been doing my annual analysis of the official income data, and it has a fascinating fact in it. The poorest third of American taxpayers, the 50 million taxpayers, those aren't the poorest Americans, they're the poorest taxpayers. Their income went down. Their slice of the total income pie in America got thinner. And the amount by which it got thinner is the exact amount by which the 21,000 richest families in America's share of the income pie grew under Donald Trump.
A question I get is, well, he's going to finally have to pay a price here. And sure, I mean, he's got a really ugly audit ahead of him. Some of what this stuff alleges could be criminal. I know the Times is saying, David, they've got more to come right now.
And he has a Manhattan grand jury that will get to the records that they want. The only thing holding back an indictment of Donald Trump is they need the accounting records. They know what his tax records are because the IRS and the state of New York share information. They have his banking records from Deutsche Bank, and they apparently have some records from the Trump Organization. What they don't have are the accounting things, and they've asked in that for drafts of the tax returns, which is very significant because in the past, Donald has said to accountants and tax attorneys, that number isn't any good. I want a smaller number. And so those could turn out to be devastating for him. And his pardon power will not protect him. He can't pardon himself, by the way. That's what the Supreme Court made clear. But he could resign the morning of January 20th, assuming he loses the election, and have Mike Pence pardon him if Pence is that foolish.
David, I know of anybody, you will be waiting for additional reporting from the Times. I appreciate your time, though, with us today.
Well, thank you for having me on.
All right, so there's the backstory on these returns. But how about politically, with the debate tomorrow, how will this play out? Andrew Whitman will join me on set. We'll get into that.